Hello. I was recently asked a question about using the wireless Smart Hand Controller 2 Plus with a hardwired Ethernet OnStep computer. This is a good example. This is the newer Max PCB 4E, and this is a PCB that uses two Teensies. One is the 4.1 and the OnStep software goes on that one. And one is the 4.0 and the Smart Web Server code goes on that. And then you use a W5500 Ethernet module to do your connectivity over Ethernet. This PCB does not have Wi-Fi. I tend to think this is one of the fastest PCBs I think Howard has ever made. The processors on these Teensies are extremely fast, and then with Ethernet you get a very fast connection on your network. So I thought I would show some of the steps into networking your OnStep computers, and this might be a good introduction to doing, or one, putting your OnStep computer on your home network, whether your home network is a combination of Wi-Fi and hardwired Ethernet. It doesn't really matter. Once you're on your home Wi-Fi or whatever Wi-Fi network, or I shouldn't even say Wi-Fi network, whatever network you put your devices on, all of your devices will be able to talk to each other across that network. Doesn't have to be Wi-Fi necessarily or hardwired Ethernet. It's all about networking and putting computers on the same network. This particular case, we will be hardwired with an Ethernet cable, and then we will be putting it onto my home network. Currently, this laptop that I'm recording off of is connected Wi-Fi to my home network. It's called Gray Wi-Fi. My home network is both hardwired and Wi-Fi, much like most everybody else's home networks. You'll have your router, which will have ports on the back, and you can bring a Ethernet cable out and hook that into a switch, and that switch will then distribute more ports if you want to have a hardwired Ethernet cable going out to your observatory, and then have a Ethernet switch out there to then make more ports you can plug out into your observatory. You can. So let's get started. Basically, this is the Smart Web Server code, which is what will go onto the Teensy 4.0. And the setup for the Smart Web Server code is relatively simple. Instead of the default Wi-Fi, we will be specifying Ethernet W5500. All of this is the same LED status, the same, everything down here is pretty standard configuration. And then the next place we will make a change is over in extended config. Over on the extended config, it's pretty standard setup also. What you will be changing is you will be disabling the access point. So we have that false. Access point is OnStep is broadcasting its own network that you join to. It's an access point. It's a way of OnStep broadcasting a network. You join onto that network, and now you're on the same network as the OnStep computer. So that's access point. Station mode. You're now converting your OnStep computer into a device that will join another network. Okay, and Because we're on Teensy and we're using the Ethernet module, we will be ignoring SSID, which is what Wi-Fi uses. We will, we will start out. Let's enable station mode true. SSID does not matter. We are not joining a Wi-Fi network. We're going to be hardwired. We don't need a password because we're not joining a Wi-Fi network. Disabling DHCP is what I recommend, and you want to set your OnStep computer to be a static IP. That way it doesn't change. DHCP is a dynamic, your router gives out IP addresses, and you never know if it's going to change, if it's always going to be the same one. So DHCP is not good for when you want to find a computer on your network, and all you have is the IP address to get to it. So disabling DHCP to false. And now the next three settings are what you need to find out about your home network. My network I've set up myself, and I've set my own IP address and everything. So for your network, what I would recommend doing is, if you're on Windows, and Mac is similar, my computer is this laptop that I'm recording on is connected again over Wi-Fi, and it's on a network called Gray Wi-Fi. Okay. If I want to find out more information on how my laptop is connected, there's a command ipconfig/all. This is going to display all the information about my networking devices on this laptop. So you'll see there's a long list. There's several, like there's my Ethernet adapter. But here is how I'm connecting is with my Wi-Fi network adapter on this laptop. So I'm connected to my Gray Wi-Fi network, and here's the information that we need to gather about the network that my laptop and the same network we're going to be putting OnStep onto. We want to get the gateway 10.11.0.1. A lot of standard networks that you're going to have for home will start with 192. It'll start with 10. Those are private networks that are not supposed to be broadcast out onto the internet. They're for LAN, not local area network, not WAN, wide area network. So the next thing we will look for is our subnet mask. Most people, you're going to have 255.255.250. It'll be very, very rare that this will change unless you're on a very advanced network that has many subnets and stuff. So now I know my laptop's IP is 10.11.188, and I'm getting that. My laptop is just saying using DHCP because I really don't care. My laptop, they can grab whatever IP it wants to. I really don't very commonly connect to my laptop from another computer, so I just let my laptop grab its IP via DHCP. And this particular time, it happened to get 10.11.0.188. Now, there is some caution, I will say, in that if you go and assign a static IP over here on your OnStep computer, you want to make sure that that's not in your DHCP range. Most routers will have a reserved range, commonly like anything from, these are called octets, octet 1, octet 2, 3, and 4. Fourth octet, on your fourth octet, you can go from 0 to 255, and most your DHCP range will be from 100 to 255. In order to find out what your DHCP range is, you will have to log into your router. And once you're logged into your router, you'll be looking for DHCP settings, and it will show here's your DHCP range. It may be 1 to 100. It may be 100 to 255. That is a little bit broader topic than what I can cover in this video. Here is a relatively safe way, at least for right now in this test. We can test if we want to assign this OnStep computer to, we'll just go do 6.4, okay? We could test that IP, and there is a program that you can run called ping 10.11.0.64, and it will try to reach out over the network and see if it can hit that IP address. And you can see 10.11.064 is saying destination host unreachable. So there currently is no device on my network with 6.4. All right. I'll show you a test that I know, .10, I know exists on my network. And these are results of what you will get when you hit something that does exist. You'll actually get a reply back from that device, which is .10. So we know 6.4 is safe. So we're going to set this OnStep computer to the IP address 6.3. So we're going to set the gateway address. We know our gateway address, which was back up here inside of our IP config/all. Our gateway was 10.11.0.1. 1 is a very common gateway. Sometimes it'll be 254. So, and we know the net mask that my network uses. And you could get this information. If you're going to have to log into your router, you can get some of this information too. It just might be a little bit harder to find and understand where these values are. I like to do IP config because it's very standard. As long as my laptop is connected to the same network that we're going to be putting OnStep onto, then these are going to be the same as what OnStep needs. So we're going to put the smart web server on the Teensy at this address, .63. Flashing a Teensy, you need to have Teensy Duino installed, and we're going to be flashing Teensy 4.0. So this is a matter of hitting upload and going. Now, we want to connect our smart hand controller 2 plus. The smart hand controller 2 plus is able to do Wi-Fi or SD4 hardwired. So we need to get, if we want to use our smart hand controller 2 plus and connect over the network Wi-Fi to our OnStep computer, so it'd be wireless, it'd be a wireless smart hand controller. What we need to do is set the OnStep controller to, or the smart hand controller to go look for our OnStep computer. Okay, we need to let the smart hand controller join our Wi-Fi network, which again is gray Wi-Fi. And once it's on gray Wi-Fi, it needs to go look for the IP address 10.11.0.63 because that's the IP address of our OnStep computer. So back to the Smart Hand Controller 2 Plus. This is the display for the 1.5-inch OLED. We will change from serial ST4 over to serial IP. And this is what starts initiating or changing things so that we can now have our smart hand controller join the gray Wi-Fi network. The rest is pretty common. I tend to turn the utility light on kind of low. That's it for that page. Extended.config. These are all pretty standard. Here's one change that we'll be using. For serial IP mode, we will switch it from the default off to station. Okay, so now that's the two main changes you need to do in order for your smart hand controller to start using Wi-Fi. Now by default, the software, the latest version of the software comes pre-configured with OnStep and OnStep X. These two settings are assuming that your OnStep and your OnStep computer are using the default smart web server on Wi-Fi, and that's how it's going to join the OnStep network called OnStep. That's the SSID, and SSID is light gray Wi-Fi. That's my SSID. Okay. So if we were to load up an OnStep computer in the default settings and load up the smart web server, the default settings for that smart web server would be to broadcast a network called OnStep. The password to join that network is password, and the IP address of our OnStep computer by default is 192.168.0.1. And you'll see, that was over here. So AP mode, you can see these would be the default settings. 192.168.0, gateway for the OnStep, the default OnStep SSID or Wi-Fi are these settings. So that's what these first three entries are just default settings. One is for smart web server broadcasting out as OnStep X SSID, and this one is SSID OnStep. Now, what we're going to do is enter information for this third one. The third one, I'm going to put in this is a descriptive name, this first one, just host name. You can name this whatever you want. I'm just going to stick with the same SSID so it's kind of obvious, I'm connecting to this SID. Now, SSIDs are case sensitive. You do not want to spell gray with a capital G. So you do need to make sure that this is written down or copied over case sensitive. So as you can see, on the display, we're going to show it as gray Wi-Fi. The SSID that we're going to be connecting to is called gray Wi-Fi. This is my big long password in order to join the gray Wi-Fi. And now the OnStep computer that we're looking for is 6.3. So we're going to be looking for what we just set up for this OnStep computer, 6.3, okay? So that is it for configuration. Now what we're going to be doing is I'll switch over to actual product now. We would upload this code to the smart hand controller, and you'd be using the ESP32 dev module. With the Smart Hand Controller 2, I do recommend that you flash with a lower CPU frequency of 80, and you usually, you'll probably have to use the huge app partition scheme, or else it may say that you don't have enough space to actually put this program onto the ESP32 MCU of the Smart Hand Controller 2 Plus. So those are those settings. So I will wrap this part up and we'll switch over to actual hardware. So now we're looking at the hardware side of things. This is the Max PCB version 4E. It's all Teensy. You can see the TNC 4.1 is soldered to the PCB and it sits underneath the W5500. The TNC 4 is in a regular header, female header, and it's a pretty, other than that, it's pretty standard for Howard's version 4 boards. I just have the A4988 drivers on here. So I've programmed this, and you'll remember it was on IP63. Let's go ahead and we'll plug in the Ethernet cable here. got 2 motors. We'll just go ahead and plug them in real quick. I don't even know if we'll get to turning them, but okay. And I have the power switch jumpered, so I'll just plug in. This is a 12-volt power. You'll see on this PCB we have some LEDs here underneath the TNC. You can see our Ethernet W5500 has blinking lights for Ethernet connection. So this is the MCU that is actually doing the smart web server, and it's the one talking to the W5500 in order to do Ethernet. Alright, now here is the smart hand controller, and as you'll remember, we set it up to join the gray Wi-Fi network and look for, once it's on the gray Wi-Fi network, and this OnStep computer is on the gray Wi-Fi network, this is going to look for the .63 address. So the first thing we're going to see when we power up is which Wi-Fi network do we want to join. And you'll remember from our configuration we had OnStep, OnStep X, and our new one, Gray Wi-Fi. So I'm going to go down and say, oh, well, I want to connect to Gray Wi-Fi, and we'll hit the right arrow. It's starting, it's connecting to .63. It's looking for the OnStep computer to send serial commands to it, and connection is okay. So what we have, let's go ahead and we'll just make sure we'll enable tracking. So let's see, do I have motors in the picture? You can see we've got motors connected and we are controlling them. So I'll explain again. What we have is this smart hand controller has joined the gray Wi-Fi network and is looking for the IP address of the OnStep computer, 10.11.0.63 in my case. The OnStep computer is hardwired with Ethernet, and it has joined the gray Wi-Fi network via hardwired Ethernet, so no password is required, no SSID is required. We are plugging straight into the switch or router or whatever you may have and joining the network that way with this OnStep computer. So once we get both of these computers onto the same network, we can then start talking to each other. So that's essentially what it comes down to. Trying to think if I can think of anything else that I need to talk about. Not really. So let's wrap this up, and I think that's it. We'll talk to you later.